Hi, my name is Sylvia Selwood, VP of Customer Relations at cortical.io, and today I have the pleasure of welcoming Chelsea Wild, Group Life and Health Underwriter and Vice President at Swiss Re America Holding Corporation, to discuss the strategic alliance between cortical.io and Swiss Re America signed in May 2024. Specifically, we will talk about the motivation and the goals for this partnership, and most importantly, the impact for group insurance carriers. Hi, Chelsea. Thank you for being with us today. Can you tell us in a few words what the purpose of the partnership between Swiss Re US and cortical.io is?
Hi, Sylvia. The goal of our partnership is to facilitate the adoption of intelligent document processing, or IDP, among group insurance carriers. Specifically, that means we are encouraging our clients to leverage cortical.io's IDP solution, SemanticPro, to improve the quality and efficiency of group underwriting because we see a significant potential for automating time-consuming tasks.
How have the core processes in group underwriting evolved over the past decade? Has there been a lot of innovation in that field?
If you really think about it, not that much has changed about the group underwriting process in the almost 20 years that I've been an underwriter, especially when you consider how much the industry has changed the way it underwrites coverage on individuals. For group underwriting, we've added new tools, we've added new lines of business, we've upgraded our quoting platforms and expanded our underwriting guidelines. We're using predictive analytics, but most underwriters are still performing the same manual, repetitive tasks that they always have. And this is a lost opportunity to focus our highly skilled talent on activities where people can actually add value, like analysis and risk assessment. Expense pressures also have underwriting departments looking to do more with reduced staff, so every minute of time savings is extra valuable. Group insurance carriers can gain advantage by automating time-consuming tasks, and many are currently adopting or have already embraced this strategy.
And can you share a typical example of a manual, repetitive group underwriting task and explain the potential advantages of automating it?
Well, for one example, the task of reviewing group certificates of insurance consumes an enormous amount of time. Our research found that underwriters can spend 10 to 20% of their time reading and analyzing certificates. And while this is an important task, it's inefficient and it's prone to human error. And it's crazy to think that an underwriter can be spending up to one full day per week reviewing certificates of coverage, considering the qualification and skills of these underwriters, right? That time could be better spent doing something else, like underwriting more cases, digging into data to identify trends, and crafting deeper analysis. It's just a waste of human intelligence. And if you think of the problem in terms of wages, it means that 10 to 20% of your salary expenses in underwriting are wasted on this trivial task instead of generating added value for the company, like better risk analysis or more personalized customer interaction. And that is a considerable opportunity cost.
We also hear from our various group insurance clients that the many different technical terms and the jargons used by the insurance carriers are a very common source of errors. Is that your experiences also?
Oh, yes, definitely. We've seen time and again how easy it is for underwriters to make errors when they're interpreting different contract language. These misinterpretations can lead to underpriced sold cases, missing out on sales opportunities, or even just hours that you have to spend trying to fix a mistake. And reducing human error on a product like long-term disability can save carriers a ton of money, because misinterpreting something like the definition of disability or the definition of covered earnings can have a really substantial impact on the risk. To give you an example, under the definition of disability, a lot of underwriters and brokers have a really hard time correctly differentiating between an and definition and an or definition of disability. Under the and definition, a claimant typically needs to have lost both material duties and at least 20% of their covered earnings in order to be considered disabled. And under the or definition, they only need to have lost either material duties or earnings, not both. And this is one of the most important aspects of a disability contract. So you would think that the contract language would be really easy to interpret, but that is not always true. And that is because carriers use all different filed contract language. And sometimes the language used by two different carriers looks really similar, but the placement of the punctuation or the definition of certain words that are used in the contract means that you need to interpret one as an and definition and one needs to be interpreted as an or definition. And these errors can cost several thousands or even millions of dollars because it can mean a claim that you cannot end. It never ends. It all depends on who is covered under the policy, how their earnings are derived, and what earnings are covered under that disability plan. For example, let's say you accidentally sell an or definition of disability to a large hospital group and they had an and definition of disability in place. If, in this example, we assume that the experience is fully credible and that manual rate factors are perfect, right off the bat, you're underpriced by about 5% because you did not account for the plan change in your pricing. But because of who you're covering, it can actually be a lot worse than that. Let's focus on the physicians because those are the high dollar claimant amounts. And based on common market practices, the plan probably offers extended owned specialty to physicians. And let's say that the definition of covered earnings is prior year W-2. Physician pay commonly includes a fixed salary plus an additional incentive-based pay. That means their earnings can vary from year to year based on their productivity. In these situations, it can be difficult or even impossible to prove that a loss of earnings was not caused by a disabling condition, even if it wasn't. If the contract does not require a loss of material duties, the insurance carrier might be on the hook for a high dollar claim that they would not have been responsible for if they had correctly interpreted the prior carrier contract language. And if the claimant eventually returns to work, but doesn't earn enough to meet the earnings test, which, these are physicians, it's going to be like 80%, a carrier would still end up paying tens of thousands of dollars per year because they're paying the claimant the minimum benefit.
Hearing about the kind of risks that they are exposed to, it is quite hard to understand why not more group insurance carriers have automated this process yet.
Well, a lot of them have tried to automate the quoting process for group benefits, including us. We ran an internal proof of concept, and through that process, we learned just how it's just really difficult and time-consuming and expensive for us to build our own tool. And a lot of carriers have found the same thing, through trial and error. Extracting data from certificates of coverage sounds super easy, but it is a really complicated project. There is no industry standard for how policy information is displayed in the certificates of coverage. So, between carriers, there can be vast differences in where the plan provision is located or in the contract language that is used. And even the same carrier may use different contract language or offer different benefits based on the contract series or based on the state that the company is situs in because of state filing restrictions. And that means that you need to train your model or you need to build rules that can extract the same plan provision from a variety of different places and also understand the nuances of the different contract language that's used by the different carriers. So, after devoting underwriting and data science resources to our POC for about 6 months, we realized that we had underestimated the amount of time and resources it was going to require for us to both produce and to update, right, because things change, an accurate policy reader tool. So that's when we began looking for an external vendor.
And what was it specifically that led you to cortical.io and SemanticPro?
Well, when we were introduced to cortical.io, we were really impressed with your SemanticPro solution. And what sets SemanticPro apart, at least to us, is its ability to truly understand the meaning of words within the context they appear. It's not just an extraction tool. It's a tool that interprets complex contract language with accuracy and consistency, and it often does better than humans. And then this, just that reduces errors. It's going to improve risk management and it streamlines the underwriting process. So as you know, we conducted a second proof of concept with cortical.io this time to test SemanticPro and to see if the technology was as impressive as it sounds on paper and if it could handle a complicated product like LTD. Honestly, we were like, if it can handle LTD, it can handle everything else. Let's see if we can break it. And so for the POC, we looked at the different plan provisions that we thought were really critical and the places where humans tend to make errors, like correctly interpreting the definition of disability. Honestly, we tried to see if we could break it and it held up. And we were also drawn to cortical.io because we don't need to use our data science resources with SemanticPro. The subject matter experts, meaning the underwriters, for the demo model, me, can train the models, and this was a huge benefit for us.
As a reinsurer, you're now engaging with your customers to promote the adoption of SemanticPro. What are the benefits you expect for your customers?
Swiss Re wants our clients to have the best chance at winning and renewing profitable business. And we think that SemanticPro gives carriers a competitive edge because it's going to improve their operational efficiency. And part of that is through, just accelerating and reviewing documents and reducing those number of errors. So they can get higher closing rates. This means that like during the peak season when underwriters are quoting, sometimes dozens of RFPs a week and the underwriting teams are under pressure, you want to give your best quotes, but they have to be done as quickly as possible. A tool like SemanticPro can make the difference about which carrier is going to win that business. And it can help our customers to improve their quote to close ratio. They might get their quotes out there faster and more accurately. Obviously, also higher efficiency. And our customers can save thousands of hours on manual review. On average, the underwriters can spend between 5 and 10 minutes per certificate when they're quoting new business. And that's assuming it's an, pretty easy certificate for a carrier that they're used to seeing. And if they're quoting life, AD&D, STD, LTD, dental, they're quoting so many lines. That can be a minimum, say, of 4 certificates per RFP if there's just one class and only those 4 lines. So that's going to mean between 20 and 40 minutes if there's only one class. But there are often multiple classes and separate certificates of coverage for each class, right? Because why not? SemanticPro performs dozens of extractions within seconds. So just think about the time savings that the underwriters can experience. And then this process is done multiple times by multiple people over the life of the sale. It's not just the pre-sale underwriters who have to go through and extract this information.
Indeed, efficiency gains are, of course, an important aspect to automation. Our customers report time savings of 30% or above when reviewing documents with SemanticPro. But in addition to the highest speeds, however, the lower error rate is actually more importantly and most often mentioned by our customers. On average, we see 17% fewer errors with an extraction accuracy of over 90%.
17% less errors is huge, considering how much is at stake for each error. So aside from the financial losses that I mentioned earlier, you can experience reputational risk and even just the time spent to correct the errors. It's a huge benefit in terms of better risk mitigation and loss prevention for group carriers. And it isn't just before the sale when SemanticPro can be used to reduce errors. I remember an example where a carrier quoted the in-force plan correctly, but they ended up issuing their certificates with the wrong contract language. That mistake wasn't identified until a few years later, and it took so much time to remedy the issue on the carrier side and on the reinsurance side.
Now let's talk about your experience as a user of SemanticPro. One distinctive feature, and you have mentioned it as well, is that models can be trained by the underwriter themselves. How difficult was it for you to train the model, and what did you like about using the product, and are there any tips for new users?
I love using SemanticPro. I think it's amazing how intuitive and easy the technology is to use. So over the course of our POC and building the demo model, I must have annotated somewhere around like 800 documents, maybe more. And if my husband was here, He would say that I like it too much because I never wanted to stop annotating documents, which sounds weird and embarrassing, but it's really rewarding to watch your model progress, right? And it's really hard to pry myself away from the computer because I always wanted to get to the next milestone. Like, when can I run the model again? When can I see, 5 more documents? We don't get that a lot in underwriting. It's not like something where you always get to see the product of your work as quickly and easily. So it's just really rewarding. And I didn't find it difficult at all to train the model. The technology is super easy to learn, but it takes practice to find the optimal way to set up the targets and to perform the annotations. During the POC, my team and we learned a lot, making revisions and making adjustments as we learned what works and what doesn't. One aspect that I particularly like is that as you start to train the models, the annotation process gets faster and faster because the model, it starts identifying your targets for you automatically in the document. And then all you need to do is approve them or adjust them, and it's so fast. And I also really like the compare feature where you can upload 2 documents and see how they differ, because there are some carriers who make amendments, right? Like to their certificate. And you can see, you open up and you're like, oh, this changed in 2022 and this changed in 2024. And there's other carriers who make a whole new certificate. So when you quote them 3 years from now, the only way to know if something changed would be to look at every piece, right? Like of the documents. But with SemanticPro, you just upload them both and it's like, this is different, that's different, and it tells you all, and it's so easy. Swiss Re has a lot of helpful guidance that we will share with our Swiss Re customers. But a tip that I can share with this wider audience is that a big key to success is to be consistent in how you annotate each target. It's important for all the annotators to be on the same page, for everybody to be doing the same thing. So just make sure you do a lot of planning up front of what your approach will be.
Well, it's certainly great to hear about your enthusiasm and that you're such a great fan of SemanticPro. We, of course, agree with your assessment. Drawing from your experience, what would you tell customers who prefer to develop their own solution, for example, experiment with LLMs or generative AI?
Yeah. Well, developing your own solution is going to be a lot more expensive, and it's definitely going to take a lot more time to implement. There is a really long trial and error process to build a similar tool, and then you don't have any guarantee that it's actually going to work as well as you want it to once you've built it. And I've seen a lot of carriers learn this the hard way after investing a lot of time and a lot of money and then moving on, to SemanticPro. So why waste time and resources in reinventing the wheel when a solution is immediately available and delivers powerful results? And in respect to generative AI, large language models are very powerful, and they can certainly be used to perform this task, but they're a lot more expensive, and they come with large variable cost based on how much you're using them. SemanticPro is able to perform high-quality extractions at a much lower fixed cost.
Well, I can certainly confirm that our customers get value from SemanticPro with a comparatively short time frame. So all in all, the implementation from SemanticPro, from signing the contract to having a production-ready application available, takes between 6 or 12 weeks, always depending, of course, on the internal resources available at the customer. But in terms of ROI, one of our customers reported savings of 2,700 hours in manual review and a return of investment within 9 months. So that's quite impressive, I would say.
That's the exact reason why we're strongly recommending our customers adopt SemanticPro. They'll reap the benefits and get a competitive advantage very quickly. And believe me, once your organization gets used to the quality of the extractions provided by SemanticPro, you won't want to go back to your cumbersome manual review process.
Thank you very much for your time, Chelsea. It was a great pleasure talking to you today.
Thanks, Sylvia. It was great as always.
Thank you. Bye-bye.